why
I
we did
think
that.
if we outline the roles, because we've got quite a few people who are joining recently, our growth rate is increasing, and um, there's quite a lot to get your head around. So, brief run over the roles that we have at the moment. Roles are uh, a core way that evolving ground is structured. Roles are not simply about having a financial contribution, that is an aspect of the roles that we really appreciate a great deal, but each role is quite distinct in its style of involvement with the
Mm.
community. And these are roles that you can move between fairly fluidly. So you might, after I know a while being in a contributor role, you might consider, oh yeah, I just want to kind of test out the solo practitioner role and see what that is like in relationship to how I have been involved so far. So our contributor role is we used to call it degenerate, and we've changed the title to contributor now. And
Begrudgingly, you and I especially,
yeah,
um,
yeah, the
degenerate will always be with me, RIP.
so the contributor role is a really good platform for getting to meet people, coming to gatherings. There's the book club that is available to contributors. It's, I would call it an exploratory role. What do
Yeah.
you think?
Yeah. The phrase that came up is kind of like testing the waters,
Yeah.
like what is it like, how can I get access to more than just I think the practice Q&A and community hosted events, which are very casual and broad. What would it be like to have access to some things that are a little bit more specific? Book club being a big one, and then now we actually um, when making this alteration, I think um, when reflecting on how to give a good taste of the variety of things that are available. That's when we came up with the idea for the new meetup that we're launching in February, which is Life Affirming Path. That meetup is available to contributors, pupils, and solo practitioners. But one of the alterations that we made, which is really new, is that it's not available to our apprentices who have been, long-standing, practitioners in the community for quite some time. And a large reason that we wanted to do that was just to kind of create a bit more of an essentialized vibe of the people who are moving into and creating a lot more variation. And that's something new that we've done. Usually the apprentices have access to everything, and because they're so active, they usually they're very present in almost all of our meetups. So I'm kind of fascinated to see uh, how those meetups take a different shape. So yeah, maybe we could just kind of quickly
Mhm.
recap the roles. So yeah, we have the contributor there testing the waters. We have
Mhm.
solo practitioners who primarily, I think the thing that for me, the thing that defines them is there's like a seriousness about their personal practice
Mhm.
and a real commitment.
Mhm.
And they see Evolving Ground and
Yes.
the community as uh, a great resource to be supplement their personal practice, but haven't but maybe not quite at that place um, of the community being the foundation or something like that. Maybe they're still there's a little bit of a sense of testing the waters with them as well. But there's something different about the relationship to personal practice. I don't know. What do you think? How's that landing for you? It's a bit
Yeah,
nebulous between those two roles, actually, which is kind of interesting.
which to the contributor and the solo
Solo
practitioner.
practitioner.
Yeah, I think the contributor role has much more of that emphasis that you were talking about on exploration of the community itself and
Mhm.
this sense of um, testing the waters, the solo practitioner role. Quite often people will move into a solo practitioner role to establish a relationship with the community that is, I'm going to be around, I'm going to come to some gatherings, and a lot of the people in the solo practitioner role are very familiar faces to us, and it's also possible to have a one-on-one with you or me through that role, and you might not want to be fully involved with contributing to gatherings and coming to a lot of the community Zoom meetings, but having that personal relationship has become pretty important. You want to have a mentor or a coaching session, you want to have access to that and be available in the community Discord or for chats or checking things out as well. So there is that sense of, a lot of the solo practitioners, we're in personal contact with either you or me or both of us in a way that is not so common amongst a much wider base of contributors. It's like establishing a relationship in some sense. And relationship is key to evolving ground. Like the method of practice is interrelational, as well as personal meditation.
If the contributors are testing the waters, is there a pithy phrase that kind of essentializes the solo practitioner? Maybe like, there's something about like a confidence in like their current direction that seems really common with the solo practitioners. Like, like I know what I know what I'm doing. I see this community as a great resource, and I'm finding the way that they relate, and the contributors just kind of keeps things that much more open. Maybe I'm not even started meditating, and I'm fascinated. Maybe I'm a meditator, and I don't life affirming practice or Vajrayana is completely new to me. I don't even know what that means, and so I'm kind of looking around and seeing if that's something that wants to be incorporated in my own practice, or I don't know. Yeah, just kind of feeling.
I think that nails it. Yeah, there's a lot of figuring out in the contributor role. There's a lot of space available for figuring out, finding people to help figure out which direction, what do I like more or less of, what works best for me individually, right across the board, loads and loads of different possible routes to explore. Solo practitioners have they have done enough of that such that for the most part people in that role are finding resources for their direction. Something is established there. They're finding assistance in their practice, or there's less of that sense of, whoa, there's just so much going on here, and do I do this or that, or much more a sense of settled with a direction, a sort of understanding of what their practice is and where they're working.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
And the pupil role.
Yeah, I was going to say, now we got the pupils.
So the pupil role, there is the extra gathering for the pupils is the practice lab, and that is a core monthly engagement for some of the pupils. And there's this sense in the pupil role that the relationship with peers, the relationship with other practitioners is actually really, really important for your own practice. So your practice is in relationship to others and geared towards learning from and being supported by community. So that is really key to the pupil role.
And there seems to be another element for me that is also, there's definitely this community orientation, this interpersonal confidence that is a part of how that fits in with your path. And I think specifically with there's also another component of something about like, and also there's something about evolving grounds approach that I really want to dial this in. I want to know what it is, because we do, we're really approaching it in a very different way. Getting involved with a different Vajrayana, with any other Vajrayana community, it's just going to be such a different vibe. So there's something about like community fit as well that feels important there.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. Yeah. So we have, for the pupils, we have the practice lab that is a pretty distinct group meeting, and that has evolved over time and is usually not more than 10 or so per session. And that is where you explore the practice. Maybe something comes up in your meditation or something in your personal practice, you bring it to the group and have the whole group like troubleshoot, talk from their experience, ask more questions, so that you've got this kind of sandbox for exploring your own practice, but in relation to the view and the methods in evolving ground.
Yep. And the community fit, then I think this is a great way of saying why another meeting that they have access to. It's not just for pupils, but it's the EG fundamentals, which is really, it's like, this is the backbone of what it looks like to engage with practice from EG's in EG's approach to Vajrayana. And we ran that last year. It took 12 months to get through all of it. So it's sectioned into 9 different components or different sessions. And we have some places in between to do just some Q&A and exploration. And that is now restarting. It just restarted in January. So this month will be the first of the new.
Coming up on Saturday.
Yep. And we'll kind of go through those fundamentals again. It'll be fascinating to see how it evolves, and especially now that the first run for me was so interesting because it created this opportunity for us to essentialize so much of what all of the foundations that we laid kind of a little bit more informally in the first 2 years of the community, and not only essentialize, but kind of enrich it a bit too. Because then once we fit it into a shape that really made a lot of sense, we could add, all things started connecting in ways that I was like, it just felt like so natural. I was like, oh yeah. And it really is like, it's it just does not compare to like previous teachings. It's not a translation. It is like the emergent structure of evolving ground, and the kind of the flavor at which we approach the language and everything like that.
Yeah, it's very specific to all of the conversations that we've been having over the last few years. So it is a translation of principles. It is a translation of function within the traditions that we're working with, but it's also, we're not going to be using a lot of Sanskrit or Tibetan. It's all in English, and it's very specific in structure to the way that we are systematizing a path to make it available to across the board. So we've got opening awareness and ethical maturity and personal autonomy, for example. Those are the 3 foundational sessions or modules. They're at the foundations, the base of the fundamentals, and then each of those leads on to path aspects and to fruitional aspects. So that is core to the pupil role, is getting access to those sessions and conversation and follow-up that is going to enable bringing things like personal autonomy into meaning in your own practice and life.
And the solo practitioners also have access to that as well. And then the Gampa meetup, this is something that's also another one. This one's been going since the beginning, basically, and is available to the same as the fundamentals, so pupils, solos, and apprentices. And that one specifically tends to be, it's a little bit more, it feels like very what's alive in the community right now, like what themes are coming up, what are people dealing with, what are people enjoying, and kind of highlighting that in a way that you or either of us will kind of take a lead and talking about that thing, and then opening it up for this discussion with the group to really kind of put a lot of extra thought and kind of connect it to the broader Vajrayana
It's
context as
usually
well.
our biggest gathering, most populated, and it's interesting in that Gompa meeting, like we'll always have a theme. So, for example, we're in the middle of the ways of being theme at the moment. We're going to talk about like descending into hell realms soon, that kind of thing. Like, what is it like to be in that kind of a place, and how do you deal with that? And the thing that I find really interesting in Gompa is, we'll have a theme, we'll have a presentation quite often, but the discussion that ensues is often developing the discourse that we've had thus far in Evolving Ground to a new area or a new way or new language that we're bringing to that particular theme or relating it to others. So it's usually very alive, that discussion. A lot of people have said, oh, that is the place where I first clicked with people, where I first felt like, yeah, I get it. This is really exciting. This is coming alive for me in a way that it's fresh, it's exploratory. There's a lot of people riffing off each other. It's quite an exciting group sometimes.
Yeah, and also really dynamic too. Like the shape of that meeting is so much more open in some sense that
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
like
We don't know
always
how it's
fascinating
going
to
to
see
end
how
up.
it ends.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of good ideas come from that meeting as well. Yeah.
All the roles get access to book club. Um, yeah, you mentioned earlier that we have a big influx of new signups and new people taking roles in January. Like we noticed probably the fastest pace of growth that we've had since just the very beginning, basically. And I've been kind of like noodling over like what was it that got people to sign up? Like we changed some of the roles around, we created new meetups, we um, worked some things around, and we moved on to a new book. And I think that all of them play their role, and I just don't know how much of each of them that each of those components play, but it's definitely we just started Rob Burbea's Seeing That Freeze, and that seems to be quite the draw in a lot of ways, a lot of new contributors, just because
Yeah, a
that
few
selection, I
people
think.
said, yeah, oh, I became a contributor so I could access the book club and those discussions. So, yeah, just to acknowledge that and appreciate your support there. Thank you to those who did.
We've gotten through most of our roles and meetups. We probably won't get through all of them. They're all on the website. So evolvingground.org/gatherings and /roles. Both of those places are where you can kind of take a peek at further descriptions and all the logistics behind the things that we've talked about. But I think the thing that I'm reminded of is that, we, after probably a year or so, we got to the point where there's enough going on that it just means that you can't attend to everything.
Right.
And so, and that's by design in a lot of the way, in many ways, and specifically because I'll get a common question. Somebody joins the Discord for the first time, and they'll say like, "So how do I get involved with the community? Like what's step one? Like do I have to go here and go to that VM?" And and I unfortunately have to say, well, I don't know, which really I think is the reason we don't know is because, as Charlie mentioned, one of the foundational aspects of this path is personal autonomy. And so understanding or exploring and looking around in the Discord, on the website, joining some meetups, whether they're hosted by Charlie and I, or if they're just community hosted and a little bit more casual. That way of exploring is going to lead to a natural interest and curiosity in certain areas. And so everybody's way in is completely different. So I don't know, but you're the only person. Each individual is the only person that can actually find that way in. And these roles are kind of like an essentialized version of like, okay, then when this seems to be the way that I'm fitting. Ideally, one of these roles just kind of shouts to you and say, "Oh yeah, I should take that contributor role. That's the spirit in which I'm currently engaging here." And this feels like I could get a lot of value from it or something. So yeah, there is no prescription, and we say it on the website. People move between different roles too. Sometimes you're take a hiatus, you have a child or something like that and need to step back, and then you step out of a formal role and you're just in the community and poking in the Discord every once in a while or showing up to some happy hours, and then maybe later you get so inspired and engaged that you want to take the pupil role and really dive in, or eventually apply for apprenticeship. I guess that's the only role that is not just kind of something that somebody can step into immediately. But it should be quite obvious when when you've taken a look at that, how the apprentices relate in the community, and the way that they interact, and that should be kind of obvious at the point where it's like, oh yeah, I think this is the thing for me. I'm gonna apply here. This sounds like a good fit for me.
Yeah, and that picking up on